Hi everyone. So happy you're here. I wanted to thank you for joining the session, taking out the time to join. Since we have a set group of people on this conversation, it'll also be nice if the attendees could, probably tell us their names, where they're joining from, what are the roles that they're in, and what are some expectations you have from this conversation. But I wanted to start this conversation with something really simple. When was the last time a piece of technology made you feel deeply seen, right? Not just helped you move faster or answered your question, but actually made you pause and say, wow, that understood me. Because let's be real, we're living in this incredible moment where AI is writing our emails, organizing our code, helping us debug life in software. And yet, when I scroll through what people are actually asking ChatGPT, it's not just write me a Python script, right? It's can you help me write a letter to my crush? Can you tell me how to grieve? Can you just talk to me like a friend? That's the twist I think nobody expected. Even as machines became more powerful, we're still reaching for something really soft, something emotional, something that still feels human, right? So today, this conversation is about tackling that very paradox. It's about the tension and the possibility of building tech that doesn't just compute but connects. We are calling it the human stack because if we have tech stacks and product stacks and growth stacks, why not a human stack? What are the values, skills, and stories that we can't afford to automate away? And to have this exact conversation, we have two incredible leaders with us today to help explore these ideas. First of all, I'm really excited to introduce Reena Gupta. She is the founder and CEO of Wisdocity, her fourth startup. It was launched in 2024. Wisdocity is transforming the way companies preserve and share wisdom. It uses digital avatars to turn tacit knowledge into personal 24/7 advisors for hyper personalized learning. Reena's entrepreneurial journey includes founding Avankia in 2002, building Target Recruit on Salesforce, and founding Mom Relaunch, a nonprofit supporting women re entering the workforce. She's also the author of Career Interrupted. Beyond business, Reena is a passionate community builder focusing on mentorship and empowering others for sustainable growth. Welcome, Reena. So happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really honored to be here and especially discussing on this topic, which is so close to my heart.
Amazing. Next up, we have our very own Kim Bayma. She's the global head of customer success at DevRev, where she's pioneering the use of conversational AI to turn data into actionable insights for customer experience, support, and product development. Kim has spent her career leading teams, optimizing processes, and helping organizations navigate change. She's also an adjunct instructor at Northwestern University's Master in Learning and Organizational Change program. Kim's expertise in human centered leadership and her work in talent development makes her a key figure in the intersection of AI and people management. Welcome, Kim. Thank you so much for joining this conversation.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with everyone.
Reena, Kim, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. So happy to have you here. Before we dive into the conversation and have some of my questions answered, I'd also like to tell the audience members that we do have a Q&A at the end of this conversation. So please make sure to drop in your questions in the chat box. Anything that's on top of your mind, something that you'd like for us to answer, please feel free to drop them in the chat box and we'll have them answered at the end of the session. With that, let's dive right in. This is a question that I have been pondering upon a lot. And this is a question that I kind of want to direct to both Reena and Kim. We're living in a moment where Chat GPT has over 180 million users. But what's fascinating to me is how many of them aren't just using it for productivity. People are asking it to write letters, to help with grief, to be a friend in moments of loneliness. Even in an age of machine efficiency, there's a quiet signal rising. We're still reaching for resonance. So let's start here. What are some human qualities you believe are becoming more valuable in this AI age? And what is it that no algorithm can truly replicate? Rina, if you could like to go first.
Sure, sure. So, you know, um, you mentioned people are chatting with ChatGPT for questions like this. So, if you look into I always tend to believe in let's get to the root cause and go why. So it's not about technology that ChatGPT has brought. It has brought the accessibility, but the real problem is loneliness. If you think about it, it's not about oh, ChatGPT is here now. I'm going to open it up, and nobody wants to spend $500 an hour talking to a therapist. Now it's a free therapist that is coming to them. That is what is causing the rise of these questions. Like we all, no matter who that person is, go through some phase of self-doubt. No matter how successful they are always wondering, am I doing the right thing? If I'm doing the right thing, how do I go back and make sure I continue to do the right thing, right? And how can I help? Like the questions people ask about grieving, I personally have a challenge. Is like, how do I respond? What do I do this? And sometimes you get the words that you were looking for from these tools, right? So, in terms of most of the challenges people are going through right now, apart from loneliness, is communication, right? ChatGPT has helped us become a little better communicator. Does it feel like when ChatGPT came and until now, uh, I personally felt that one of my weakness area is how do I communicate? How do I write in proper English, proper grammar, all those things. I was not a really good English student, so I just found that tool that can help me communicate better. And I can tell you that the day it came out, I was the first beta user for paying whenever it cut out. And till now, my maximum use is rephrase this thing for me, please. Right? That's it. I mean, I don't use for much than that. So loneliness is the root cause. People desire to be understood, that how can they communicate to something to someone, who do they care about? Like if they don't care about, they don't care, they will just spit out anything. That's what social media is all about. They come, they dump their garbage in the brain and let the whole negativity flow there. But when you really care about, and that's what I think, if you look into different models, ChatGPT, I still find it brings that tone as compared to some other models. Other models, I am a Grok has become one of my other favorite thing where but you can sense the different type of tone and language that comes out. So that's what people are looking for. And the most important thing people are always looking for, can I get it for free or very less cost? And it is providing it that access. So I think that's what is causing this. It's not about tools. It's not about is they feel that somebody's hearing them, somebody's taking care of them, somebody is actually giving them the power of communication and listening. People want to be heard, right? So somebody is there and not judging. He's not the ChatGPT is not, why did you ask me this question, right? So those are the human sides of what is causing that upsurge in my mind.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Kim, anything that you'd like to add? Anything from your experience? Any qualities you think that no algorithm can replicate?
I mean, there's so many things that humans possess that AI cannot, and it's hard to distill down to one, but I think some of the things that Reena shared, like I think it comes down to like the ability to build connection. When you think about it, that's what humans are uniquely designed to do. And when I think about like my own world, like, yes, ChatGPT can help the CSMs as part of my team, like do a much better job writing an email for sure, like make it more succinct, target it towards the right stakeholder. But ChatGPT can't help them read the room, recognize when there's tension, hear the inflection in that stakeholder's voice when you can tell their job's on the line if this thing doesn't get fixed. And AI can't build trust with other human beings. Like, I kind of think as AI as a thought partner and like a safe space to do experimentation and like kind of like the place where you first do your brainstorming before you bring it to another human. And it helps you like iterate and build on those drafts. But I mean, you're not going to build trust by sending an agent over to do the work of a customer success manager for sure. Like that still is something uniquely human. But it allows humans to spend more time doing that type of work versus spending time drafting an email or creating a ticket or, what other mundane automatic task can be done by AI. So that's how I think about it a little bit.
Yeah. That leads me to something that Reena, you just spoke about as well. When I read about Wisdocity, we just don't see a product, right? You see a container
Mm-hmm.
with a kind of wisdom that doesn't live in handbooks. It reminded me
Mm-hmm.
of something that Satya Nadella said during COVID, that how the loss of hallway conversations disrupted not just culture, but mentorship and morale. How do you design a platform that honors those in-between moments? The looks, the size, the shared stumbles. How do you scale something that's deeply personal and often unspoken?
Yeah, you said something like it, if you think about it, we call it my company Wisdocity, which is a combination of two words called wisdom and city. So we are creating and the way I describe in my slide is like a pyramid, right? You start with data that turns into information, that turns into knowledge. Most of the companies are sitting on that knowledge. What is the most difficult part is getting that experience, right? How do, to what Kim said, is like, why did a customer service person responded an email to a customer in a different tone versus something different? I mean, we all know customer is the king, but sometimes customers can be something that you really want to let go of, right? You really don't want to deal with that, and you have to bring that tone in there, right? All those things can help build that insight and wisdom, saying that I responded to this particular customer because of this situation, and that stays in the head of that person. Okay. The key is, how do we capture those things? Those called tacit knowledge. That's what we are looking into, how we can continuously provide a way to seamlessly, I would say the term seamlessly is like this conversation that we are having right now. Why do I have to process this? What was the tone that is discussed? Why do we have a way to just record something? This is why I responded to this person. It becomes part of it, right? There are so many things people communicate in terms of sharing why they did it, what was the reason behind it, which is not documented. And that's one of the things is what we are going after, the tacit knowledge. And then hopefully with as the technology advances, we will start to interpret and infer and all those things a lot more uh, I don't want to use the term human, but a lot more context driven, and then provide this response. And you can see one of the things you can think about is the system can start looking into embedding the workflows and say, why is this customer support ticket open for so long? And if it is open for so long, what can we do to help bring the help proactively to the person? Another problem people will continue to, which is again a basic human problem, we don't want to ask, we don't know how to ask for help. But if somebody's coming in and say, oh, you know what, I see that this is open for such a long time, how can I help it? And by the way, this person has closed a similar thing by using these things. That is where we need to be. Otherwise, we will continue to do the things, be in our own bubble, and not able to get the help because we don't know how to ask for help. That's how we are trying to. So currently, Wisdocity is focused on, it started with just the regular documents, just like any other companies. Now we are seeing how do we continue to make it as part of the uh, workflows, and then how do we embed those workflows? Imagine something coming on DevRev platform. It's like, this is for an internal customer support person. It's like, I can help you close this because this is give the whole context and build adding the agentic AI is like, don't even have to work and suggest if it is not needed, just go and do some things, take actions and all those things in there as well. So I think it's important to understand those uh, human side of it, which is again, I go back and people, when they ask me, it's like AI versus human. I don't think we are comparing apples to apples here, right? We are not. So when we are not comparing apples to apples, humans have a way to grow and create more things. Right now, we are thinking of agentic AI of replicating and automating the process that humans have built because that's how they are wired to do. But why do we have to do it like our goal is for the output? My goal is to support end that customer's ticket or close that customer ticket. Why do I have to go through that process? What can we do creatively close that without? So if we start thinking outside the box of, we don't have to follow the process, we don't have to build like all those step by step and add an agent to it. Let's focus on the working backwards. It's like, my goal is there, how can I do that? So there are multiple ways to do that. So I think we are all in that amazing moment, and we will see the evolution at a pace that is really mind blowing.
Reena, you just articulated something that we constantly talk about with customers is like this idea of like, how do you almost reinvent how to get to your outcome with what's available now, right?
Yeah,
And the other thing I wanted to reflect back to is I think about the work that your team's doing. When you think about tacit knowledge in like maybe like let's say the pre-COVID era, often it was like a situation where it was sometimes like luck almost, or like a matter of who you knew or who you happened to run into at the water cooler, so to speak.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
what your organization is doing, almost tacit knowledge and almost making it more equitable. Like it doesn't matter
Yeah,
where you live, what country you live in, what role you're in, you're going to have access to the same information and have the same opportunities. And at least in my career, and it is probably resonates with a lot of folks on this call, sometimes it was pure luck. Like I happened to sit next to the person who knew the answer, who could help me in that moment when I was more junior in my career, and then it helped propel me onto something else. And now with a lot of this work that's getting done, like it's not going to be situational anymore. We're all going to have
yeah.
access to the same things, which I'm really excited about.
Mm. Thank
Yeah.
Exciting times ahead.
you.
Actually, Kim, I wanted to follow up on something that you mentioned earlier, right? Like, I've heard so many people say that AI works until your customer's having a really bad day. That is so interesting because when someone's upset, they don't really want efficiency, they want empathy, right? At
Yeah.
DevRev, where you're bridging AI and customer success, how do you make sure empathy doesn't get outsourced? And what does it truly look like to scale compassion while still protecting your team's emotional bandwidth?
Oh, that's such a fascinating question. And I mean, I see AI as a partner in delivering empathy, right? But it's not a substitute. And it should, if you design it correctly, it should help us get to the right places where empathy is needed the most because of the way we've developed it and it understands how humans are, the tone and how they're interacting with it. We're not quite there all the time, but I'm hoping we'll get there. Um, you know, There was something I was reading about how ChatGPT responded to doctors' answers because they seemed more empathetic. I don't know if anybody read about that. I think it was Ethan Mollick talked about it, but it also simulated empathy, um, which is really interesting because doctors are always leading with empathy, right? And it's actually a really good place to start. But like at the end of the day, like real empathy isn't just about tone. It's about how you time it, what presence you provide, how much space you create, the silence like the taking in of what's being shared to you and like also knowing when to step in. And so, I mean, like AI can't replicate those things by any means today. And so I think about like for my team, how do we make sure we automate what drains our teams? The stuff that if you were to ask somebody to wave a magic wand and say, what are like the top three things you don't love doing about your job that we could take away? And they answer those three things. If we can automate those three things and we take away the drain on the humans, then they can show up fully for those human moments. They can really create presence. They can create the pauses. They can invest the time. And then, we can invest the time in the team's emotional well-being because they're not dealing with all this monotonous work. And yeah, one of my mentors often talks about like how you can't pour from an empty cup. And like this is what I hope AI does for my team in particular is creates more fullness of the cup so they can be present for these emotional moments where empathy is needed and they're not thinking about like the five administrative tasks they still need to get done for the end of their day. They're fully present when an individual's like, hey, I just need you to listen and show me empathy.
That's such an interesting take. Talking about empathy, I'm not really sure if everybody is aware of this, but this is like an instant hit in India. So we have the Studio Ghibli trend going around, right? So you have people who are turning, these really mundane everyday moments like sipping tea or folding laundry into these dreamy Ghibli style portraits, and they're soft and they're nostalgic and honestly kind of magical, and a lot of folks are really into it. But also, there's this quieter conversation happening in the background, where some are wondering, are we truly honoring the spirit of Miyazaki's work? Or are we unintentionally turning it into just another trend? Especially when you think about it, Miyazaki was somebody who was really vocal about his discomfort with AI and how it's being, used in art. Honestly, both sides have a point. On one hand, there's this collective craving for slowness, softness, and intentional living, which is the very essence of Ghibli's world. But on the other hand, there's this tension. Are we rushing to replicate beauty without really understanding the care and philosophy that's behind it? It makes me pause and think, in our constant push to optimize and speed things up, what are we really losing? How do we build systems and cultures that still leave room for the soul of things? Kim, is that something that you'd like to talk about? Just start the conversation there.
That's a deep one. I mean, at the end of the day, like we even talked about this a little bit. Like AI is a lot of it's reflected around optimization, and like that's super valuable, but it is meaning that sustains us as human beings. And I think a lot of the things you're getting at is like how we derive meaning from art, how we derive meaning from interactions with each other. How do we make things, like almost spiritual moments or moments where we can have reflection or drive connection. And I think what a lot of what you're getting at is like, how do we make sure we're not losing any of that through how we're leveraging things? And I had I was prepping for a class I'm teaching at Northwestern this summer, and we're having a customer come in to help. The team's going the students are going to help him and his organization basically figure out how they drive better adoption of AI. And he asked me like a really personal question. This is someone I know really well. He's like, my daughter is going to school for art in her college studies. Can you tell me if her job is going to exist in 2 years? And I mean, like, of course, I don't know, but you could just tell like the tone of him as a protective father and knowing what an amazing talent she has and like how much soul and effort and thought she puts into her work. And we all have to be really protective of AI not replacing true art, AI not replacing true creation. Like what humans can do is incredibly valuable, and it should complement kind of what we were talking about earlier. Like AI can help be like a sounding board for an artist, but it shouldn't replace the artistry. And I don't know if that's what you're getting at. And I'd be curious if Reena has thoughts, but like that's my initial reaction because it's kind of scary when you start talking about some of this. You absolutely still want your creators and your art and all the things that make humanity so enriched.
Yeah, I have a little different take on this. A little, being in
Good.
Silicon Valley, all I see is people running and working at the pace which is humanly impossible. And the real thing happens, the value they realize about just slowing down a little bit when they get a wake up call. Okay, wake up call could be really a health issue, a family issue. And it's like, and as I said, like this is the time that we are seeing in the last couple of years, the pace at which things are moving. We are not just adding optimization and automation, we are rethinking and reevaluating everything, right? How, what is the values that you bring to yourself as a human matters the most. Now, I would not make sugarcoat anything saying that not, I think every job is at risk, including the job of the CEOs. Okay. So it's going to be putting yourself a, in a where you don't want to open your eyes thinking everything is fine. I have heard so many things about saying, should I get on this AI train and or not? I mean, that's not the right question. Is to ask is like, but how do I get on the train with the pace that will work for me? And ultimately, like goes back is like, why are we doing all these things? We are doing this for humans to be happy, to be satisfied, and have a better place for the planet, and we are doing everything which is going against us. Like all of us, the amount of unhappiness right now in the world is, I think, at a pace that nobody have could have ever even thought about, right? Why? Because we are moving at a pace which we have not adapted to our pace. That's the challenge. Is like, how do you create that balance between, yes, I want to not considered lazy sitting on the couch, but also I don't want to be running at the pace trying to match somebody else, right? Uh, I think there was one really good ad from one of the beer companies where it was showing a robot was doing everything fast and everything doing, and suddenly he looks at from the window saying, everything is worth it only when you can enjoy. and the guys and humans are drinking beer. I mean, I think that was a spot on, brilliant ad about human and AI difference. You can do things, but unless you really sit down and enjoy, it's not worth it. Don't wait for the wake up call. I mean, that is the worst thing. You can see so many interviews of people in those last days of their lives is like, oh, I wish I had done this, spend more time there. This, so it's all, and I have a little bit of the spiritual side. I would say I'm part of it. I do a lot of stuff, even for Mom Relaunch Power Hour sessions that we do. For these sessions, we take first 5 minutes and just meditate during those sessions. And we call it like bring your receiving mind, because you are coming in the session and every speaker who come to our Mom Relaunch session, they appreciate those 5 minutes of moment more than that. So yes, there is a value, but we have to understand what is our pace, what does slowness versus laziness versus being efficient matters to us, and have a scale for ourselves. It's very hard to do, but if you don't do it, that's where it causes all the uh, depression and things, because we are not comparing ourselves to being the better version of ourselves by slowing down, by adding the real. There are people like in each family, we all have our different level of ability to do the work, to run at a pace, to certain things. So, but we have to match our own stuff before comparing it with whether it is everybody should slow down. No, we all will work at different pace. We all have to work and match our own abilities and our own fulfillment in life there.
Yeah. I'm so glad you spoke about mom relaunch, because that is something that I want to talk about a lot. There is this, I think there was this World Economic Forum report that named emotional intelligence, creativity, and complex problem solving as the top future skills. And
Mhm.
across industries, it's often women leading from those strengths. Not by mimicking these traditional power structures, but by redefining them, right? Why do you think women are playing such a pivotal role in this shift towards human first leadership? And, talking about your own lives, what have you had to unlearn to lead this way?
Kim, you want to take it first?
Yeah, I can jump in.
Mhm.
So, like full disclosure, I've been in my career for about 20 years. So there's lots of unlearning that's had to happen as I've moved into different leadership roles. And I'll start by saying, like, when you're more junior in your career, you often feel like you have to lead like the people that came before you. And sometimes they're men, sometimes they're women. But for me, what I observed was this hiding emotion, being very performance oriented, optimization oriented, operationally sound. And as I moved into leadership, I learned that I had to unlearn that. And that's where I learned, like, actually, my superpowers were emotional intelligence, the creativity I brought that drove innovation, and also the vulnerability I could demonstrate to make my teams motivated and also feel like they're not alone. That's ways to motivate individuals to achieve goals. And they're really not soft skills. Like I said, I consider them leadership superpowers, and women do bring them forward a bit more. And why that is a great research question. I think there's lots of things we could hypothesize, but they're things that women uniquely bring to the table. Um, I've been thinking a lot about my own career, and I've really joined the AI centric space over the past 4 months as I joined DevRev. And part of what motivated me to join DevRev and to lean in on what's happening in AI is to make sure that we have women in the room that are not just using AI, but are helping to design it. I think part of what has been keeping me up at night is how do we ensure that AI in particular, as it takes on different parts of it might even, to Rena's point, like it might take on leadership capabilities. It may be a CEO. That's fascinating to me that that could happen, but it could. And how do we make sure it's getting designed and modeling empathy, ethics, and equity at the core? And so for me, that's been a bit of my experience, and uh, it's definitely been a journey. I'm trying that I could definitely elaborate on more, but I'd be keen to hear what Rena has to say too.
Yeah. So as I said, I think I bring in a little different context here, because I've always been the founder of my own company, and I call myself as the solo bootstrapped. So I've always been in the leadership position, making decisions literally taking the advice and all, but the buck stopped at me, right? And I had the privilege of whatever you call it, intelligence driven, emotional driven, situational driven, all those things. And I believe women have that, I would say, superpower, in my opinion, just uh, to analyze things in a multidimensional way. I think that is one thing. It is because how our brain is wired, of thinking what can go wrong first and how do we fix it, and then and I feel like I have a it's like I can see things visually in my brain before things happen. Whether having a planning a birthday party for my kids somehow, or doing something, or going into a meeting, I can just visually see that whole thing play in my front of my eyes, and I can somehow like uh, see, and I feel like I'm in a virtual game before the things happen. So that ability to think beyond what is not we see with our eyes alone, and the data and all, is the power that women, I think, has a very, 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 you call it as intuition. It could be as simple as that, right? I think we are very lucky to have that. And maybe it's, and again, maybe it's that maternal skills of that comes with us, where for centuries and centuries we know when kids are saying something, what they're are they really meaning that, or is there something else around it which we are not seeing? I think that has been trained so well in women, because more and more I talk to women in our companies or outside, I find that unique capability to be the differentiator. And the more we enrich that, the more we understand they, as part of some of the spiritual stuff they we learn. There's something called an intuition program that we teach to kids from up to 5-6 years of age, and that is so amazing that in adding and honing that skill of intuition, which women have already built in, we just need to make it more available to them so that they can access it better. And the more and more women are coming into the workforce, they are bringing that capability and that skill to us. And that's what is we are calling it as empathy. But that, I think that's something that we are built in with the years and years of training that has come to us, is where I see it.
I think that is something that I can definitely vouch for, because at DevRev we have an incredible community of women, and
Mhm.
when you work with them, you kind of understand that
Yeah.
this is an emotionally intelligent group that has their their stuff sorted. So I think that is something that I can definitely vouch for. That leads me to one of my final questions, right? I came across this interesting chatbot called Solace by this startup. So it's basically an emotionally intelligent chatbot that is meant for dementia caregivers. So it
Mhm.
doesn't just answer your questions, it remembers stories, right? It waits, it comforts. And it reminded me that responsible AI isn't just about not harming, it's also about understanding humans in their fullness.
Mhm.
What would it mean to build systems that can sense tone or hold vulnerability or even pause in silence, right? How do we make sure that the future of tech is not just functional, but in its own way deeply human? Like, how do we build tech like that? Would you like to?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, well, it goes back to your first question, right? If you think about it, right? How do we build, and what is it to, if we go back to the first answer that I said, why do people are even seeking out for this system? Okay. They're seeking it out because they don't have another human to talk to. Okay. I can 100% guarantee you that if you give a person who's seeking, who's dementia, is like talk to a human versus talk to a AI machine. If both of them are 24/7 available, listening, and all those things, they will still choose a human to go with, right? Why? Because we are, no matter, and I say it's like human brains are, we are storytellers, we are dreamers, we are innovators, right? With AI currently, when I say this, with currently, there, no matter how much data, how much training, and uh, the power it takes to build a system like that, right, is is tremendous drain on the resources. So, in terms of why and can it be built? Yes, it can be built. But how soon and how quickly can it be to the level of, and will it ever be? And will we ever accept, no matter how much there's so much talks about, and I'm working at Wisdocity of having somebody who's no longer alive to create not only as a text chat and video and audio, but how can we even bring that person live as a hologram, right? Think about Star Trek moments, right? So this is craziness at a different level. But are we ever going to build a system that can come close to the human at the cost of training, at the cost of providing that level? Yes, it is always going to be a gap. One of the other things that I have been reading is the divide between the people who are subject matter experts versus people who are still getting on the bandwagon of AI. It is going to be increasing, no matter how much we are going to be talking about democratizing. But who knows the industry so well, like the uh, systems, Solace, you said, right? That they have gone through why people are even using those systems. That's their subject matter expertise, right? That subject matter expertise that is going to be dividing the good Solace versus bad Solace companies and the things that they are building. And that is what is so difficult to replicate in terms of actually comparing with humans. Yes, it is going to be there. It is a progress that we are getting there, but it's not, no matter how much AI or AGI and all those things in there, but it is going to be a time for people to understand and solve the problem, that why we are doing it. We are throwing technologies at, assuming that the problem is there, but we are not going directly under. It's like, think about that. I just read article saying that, oh, there is going to be a whole new way of how CRMs like Salesforce work. And some company actually says, like, why do we even have to enter my notes? I mean, good question, right? So the whole process reinvention is what we are looking at. And companies right now, we are just throwing technologies at thinking it is the solution without understanding the depth. And that's where the companies who can really understand the why behind why we are building it, and the ultimate goal is to make humans happy, make happy. That is the place we should be thinking about bringing those emotional systems.
I'm trying to think of what to add because you articulated so much so beautifully. Um, I mean, at the end of the day, like having AI that's like, essentially like emotionally intelligent really just begins with context and understanding
Mhm.
it. Just a lot of what Rena said, and like being able to recognize tone and knowing when the AI has gone as far as it can and that it needs to bring in a human or advise the human it's interacting with that they're not the right thing to interact with at this point. I mean, I even think about like you said it was Solace, right? Like, I mean, when does Solace say, actually, it's time for you to talk to an expert in this. Let me bring in that expert in caregiving or in dementia or whatever it is, and I'll help you get to that person because we've hit the point with me where I'm not the right thing for you, right? And I haven't really seen AI do that outside of like, the basic commercial transaction. Yeah, of course, like if you're on Amazon, you're dealing with their chatbot, it's eventually going to say, I can't help you, go talk to one of our agents. But some of these other things, there's going to be some of that needs to happen. Like, how does the AI know that it's a really co-intelligence at the end of the day? It's not the end all be all. How does it know when the human's more equipped to handle what's being asked of it? And it brings that human in. And same thing for the human, right? Like a human knows that actually the AI would be better to work on this. Let me have the AI do it. And I think that's how like we become emotionally intelligent together is like knowing what element does what better, not necessarily trying to make them the same. And I think we've talked about that quite a bit here. Like what humans are capable of, what we're uniquely designed to do, should not try to be replicated by AI. Like we should try to just blend together and truly work together beautifully. Um, and then, I think specifically for what you said, like there's an element of dignity when it comes like this caregiver aspect, right? Like,
Mhm.
and even dignity when there's a frustrated customer or, someone who's truly upset and is trying just to get an answer. Like AI, it'll be hard for AI to figure that out. But I think again, like context and understanding how to recognize it will help it get a little bit of the way there. But I think when we get to the day where AI feels more like a partner than a machine, we've gotten some of the way there, and I feel like that's starting to happen. I don't know if everybody's seen. I feel like my LinkedIn feed's full of people saying, I asked ChatGPT to describe me based on all my interactions. I think Diraj posted this recently, who's our founder, for those of you who don't know him. He posted that in one of our leadership chats or our general channel on Slack in the past 3 days. And it was pretty spot on. And I had a few people who did it similarly in my network. So I actually think we're starting to get to that place where AI is more of a partner. It observes like who you are as a human once you interact with it more. So I actually think I'm going to have a very different answer to this question in like 6 months' time. I think I'm still seeking to understand.
Yeah. And again, there's always a good balance of how much you really want the AI to learn about you.
Totally. Yeah.
So, it's the watching like a creepy surveillance. You don't want it to be that level, but but we want our problems to be solved, right? That's the whole point, right?
That's right.
That
That's
that
right.
is that is how we have to change our mindset here. It's
And
it's everything.
I'm pretty sure if I asked ChatGPT to describe me right now, it'd say you clearly are the mom of a toddler who's always trying to figure out how to solve things. I think that's what it's saying. And clearly you're frazzled all the time. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty right. Because I do ask you a lot about that.
Yeah. So how old is your toddler?
He's about to be 3. So we're in the thick
Wow.
of a lot of things. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful time to get parenting advice also. I wish we had a little bit.
Exactly.
But I think those are some really, really interesting takes and answers. Those were my questions, and thank you so much, Reena and Kim, for answering them. And I'm sure everyone here has some thoughts or questions bouncing around after hearing Reena and Kim. And this is your chance to ask anything, dive deeper into some of the points we've touched on, or just share your own experience. I do see a question in the chat box, but if you have a question or something that you'd like to add, please feel free to raise it, in the chat box. But let's just open with some questions. This is from Natalia. I hear a lot how AI is going to take all of our jobs. I believe AI is not coming for our jobs, but people that has adopted and understood how to use it are going to be leading the job boards. What are your thoughts on that? Anyone could like to go first. Reena, Kim.
Yeah, yeah. So one part of me and my work has been on workforce talent nurturing. Um, Mom Relaunch is my official foundation that I go through and work with, and you can imagine the uh, concern, excitement, and everything that is around new technology. And as I said, like first time ChatGPT came out, my instructions and suggestion for everybody in our team was get on the bandwagon of AI literacy. There's no way to avoid that. And there's no way to just close your eyes and think that it is not going to impact you. It is going to impact. So the hard truth is, yes, it is going to impact the digital divide of who, and it's not about how you can use these tools, the in-depth understanding of your subject, your expertise, and how do you amplify your own potential using these tools is definitely going to be there. But don't depend only on the tools, because tools will come and go. You have to really understand, dig deep, ask why 5 times, and understand what is something, the real outcome that you're trying to do. If you get entangled, and I'm a process freak person, I write down everything that I need to do to make sure that if I'm not there, somebody can just look at the document and do my job, right? even that process is going to change drastically. What is not going to change is your understanding of the problem, your understanding of the opportunity. So people are currently mistaken about, oh, I learned these AI tools and I'll have a good mode that I'll be still valuable. That's not, you have to understand the depth of the concept of the problem itself, right? You were talking about customers want to, who are frustrated, they want empathy. I'll go back and say it's not they want empathy, they just want to be solved. Whether somebody is coming in and asking and talking them politely, yeah, it gives them a little bit of calmness. But again, no matter how politely you talk, and if their problem is not solved, they will continue to be frustrated, right? So think from how what the problem is, how to solve the problem, what is your opportunity, and dig deeper into that. Tools will come and go. AI currently, I don't know if it becomes AGI, it becomes some, and so many new acronyms are coming in that we need a whole new dictionary for it. But your depth of understanding of the subject and the problem is what is going to differentiate you.
Well said. I do think there's this piece of like, there are some jobs that AI will take, right? Like there are definitely roles. I think about my prior organization, like the AI agent that they were building was clearly going to displace like the job of a recruiting coordinator. Like
Mhm.
that job was probably going to no longer exist. And so people with those skill sets need to think about what other jobs their subject matter expertise leads to, because the operational nature of that type of role, that job, it will be automated, will become AI, but there are problems that that job solved for that were not automated and what have you that can be applied to other types of roles, because AI also does create the opportunity for new roles to come about. And there'll be new types of jobs, and how do you jump in and do some of those things? So I think it depends on who you're talking to as well. Like I definitely feel like some folks in my network, like there is a real possibility that their jobs will go to AI, and they'll have to think about what expertise they have for the new jobs, or jobs that still are around that they need to focus on. There is a little bit of displacement that is happening, but I think like Reena articulated it really well. Like those who know how to work alongside AI, have deeply understood it, know how it can make them better at the work they know how to do, and it helps drive further impact for them. That's going to be a really amazing superpower that anyone can bring. And I think you're absolutely right, Reena. Like the divide between the people who have embraced it and understood it, and like those who are still like at the beginning of the adoption curve, like that's going to become so far in very short time. And there's definitely a little bit of urgency for folks to figure out how it applies within their space and their scope.
Yeah, and taking an example of your recruiting coordinator and how do we, so I have built an applicant tracking system. And when Alexa came out first time, that was the one. It's like, oh my God, can I just, my recruiter can talk to Alexa, who are my qualified candidates? Can the Alexas? So we did build the POC at that time, the first version of Alexa, and we did that. And so this technology is there, but bringing that, the jobs, if there are 10 recruiting coordinators job, there will still be one human in the loop recruiter, the uh, recruiter supervisor, you call it, as the human supervisors of these recruiting coordinators, that will still go in, and the person who knows exactly to find the nuances and make the decisions on the spot if things that will still be there. And that's why I go back and say, understand the problem, understand the depth of it. Why, I mean, again, in DevRev context is like, why this customer support ticket is still open, and why it is not being solved, and what can we do to make sure that, yeah, I can read all those things and the AI can take action, close tickets and all, but there's something that nuances that is comes with the subject matter expert. So go deep. This is the time that you can go as deep as possible in any area that you're in, and that's where you will emerge and be the co-pilot, co-intelligence, and always be that human in the loop that can help.
Natalia, I hope that answers your question. And like Reena said, you know, the future is just about the collaboration between us and AI, right? It's our co-pilot, it can be our catalyst, so it's up to us on how we decide to use it. What stands out, from today is how much we all need to remember that technology is only one piece of the puzzle. It's the empathy, the wisdom, and the human connection that truly makes a difference in how we build the future, especially with AI and innovation shaping the way forward. Thank you so much, Reena and Kim, for joining the conversation, taking your time to come and share your insights. I've had some of my greatest questions answered, so thank you so much for that. And to the audience members as well, thank you so much for joining, everyone. I would just say that let's keep this conversation going. Let's continue asking ourselves how we can stay human centered in a world that's increasingly tech driven. And most importantly, how do we lead with compassion, curiosity, and a real sense of purpose? Thanks again, everyone, for joining. It's been a pleasure. And I hope we can all take something from this session that helps us lead and innovate in our own spaces. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
So, and I'll put one last thing is like the pace at which technology is going. Our next one version of Zoom webinar will be our all our digital avatars talking to each other, right? So that's that's how. So we have to be even get prepared for that. So, but yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this discussion. Thank you for having.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you
that's
all.
when I say that it's not going to be a hope. We all have to know how to cope up with it, and how to work with it when it happens, right? It
Absolutely.
it it will happen sooner than what we are imagining. So anyway,
Have a good
but
conversation. Yeah.
absolutely, I had a great time chatting with Kim, you, and Sneha, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you all. Great way to spend an early afternoon here in Chicago. Have a great rest of your
Bye,
day.
bye, guys.
Bye.